Hello there, welcome to my guide for painting Black Legion Chaos Space Marines. Now these are the models from the Blackstone Fortress set, so that's what I'll be focusing on because I'm trying to get that out of the way, and I thought that'd be a nice opportunity to do a little paint guide for them. As you can see, the first thing I've done is given them a coat with some Mechanicus standard grey spray. I'm going to kick things off by getting their black armor out of the way, and to do that I'm going to use some black Templar contrast paint. I'm going to use a couple of coats to make sure the black is nice and dark. Then we're going to use Corvus Black to start to highlight the black. I like to use Corvus Black because it's a very subtle highlight. I'm not a big fan of these bold, brash highlights on black, so this black is going to be a lot more subtle. This will then be followed up by some Eshin Grey for the final edge highlight. For the black of the rifle, we're going to add one more layer, and that's going to be some Mechanicus standard grey just for a quick edge highlight. Next, we're going to use some Iron Hand steel to start painting any of the silver areas on the model. Then we'll use Dryad Bark to paint any straps or leather holsters. And I'm also going to use some Dryad Bark to paint the fur on my Chaos Champion. I'm going to use some Gal Vorback Red for a bit of variation in the leather, so I'm going to paint a few bits of the cloth on the Chaos Space Marines, and I'm also going to paint the cloak on the Chaos Champion. In all those sections we've just painted, we'll get a wash with some Nuln Oil. Once the Nuln Oil is dried, we're going to use some Catatan Flesh to highlight the Dryad Bark. Going to use some Gothor Brown to gently dry brush the fur. And for the red leather, we're going to use some Wordbearer's Red for the first highlight. And then we're going to use some Doombull Brown for the second. Next, we're going to use some Retributor Armor Gold to paint all of the gold trim. We're also going to paint some of the parts of the weapon as well, mostly that open mouth, and there's a little symbol on the front of the gun as well. Next, I'm going to use some Rakarth Flesh to paint the wraps that are around the holster, and I'm also going to do a part of the remaining cloth as well. I'm then going to use Morghast Bone to paint any bony areas such as the horns or the knee pads. I want to paint their loincloth with some Mephiston Red, along with the top knot on the Chaos Lord, and I'm also going to paint the lenses on the Chaos Warrior with a helmet. I'm then going to use some Screaming Bell to paint the armor plating around the plasma pistol of the Chaos Lord. The Chaos Lord also has loads of tubing all over him, so we're going to paint that with some Skaven Blight Dinge. And Screamer Pink will be used to paint the handle of his hammer. Then all of the areas from the gold up to this point will get a wash with some Agrax Earthshade. Once our shade is dry, we're going to neaten things up a bit. I'm going to use Rakarth Flesh first of all to relayer the cloth that was painted and the straps around the holsters. I'm then going to create a 50-50 mix of Morghast Bone and Ushabti Bone to start highlighting any bone areas that we've painted. This will be followed by a highlight of Ushabti Bone just by itself. I'm going to use Mephiston Red to re-highlight the areas that we've painted red. I'll also paint the lenses on the Chaos Space Marine's helmet. Then I'll use a 50-50 mix of Mephiston Red and Evil Sun's Scarlet for the highlight. I'm going to use Screamer Pink to re-highlight the handle on the hammer. And I'm going to use Storm Vermin Fur to highlight the piping on the Chaos Lord's body. Uruk Armor Gold is what I'm going to use to highlight all the gold trim. And then I'm going to use Stormhost Silver to highlight the silver, and I'm also going to highlight the sharper points of the gold with it as well. For the fleshy areas, I'm going to use some Rakarth flesh, which will then be washed with some Reichland flesh shade. While that dries, I'm going to use some Jakero orange to paint in the Eye of Horus, as well as the ring on the opposite shoulder of the Chaos Space Marines, and a little bit of the hammer on the Chaos Lord. These areas will then be given a wash with some Fugen orange. Once the wash has dried on the flesh, I'm going to use some Abaddon Black to mark in the eyes, followed by matte white, and then finally I will do a dot of black for the pupils. Now I'm ready to highlight the skin. Once again, I'm going to use Rakarth flesh just to neaten everything up. And then I'm going to use a 50-50 mix of Rakarth flesh and Pallid Witch flesh for the highlight. The Chaos Lord has a scar down his head, so we use some Karaberg Crimson just to mark that in place. I'm then going to use some Trollslayer orange to highlight the Eye of Horus and the rings around the shoulder pad. For the Chaos Lord's plasma pistol, I'm going to use some Temple Guard blue, followed by some matte white to edge highlight. And then I'm going to use some Akellen green just over the plasma pistol, just to get a little bit of shade in there and to slightly reduce the effect of the white. And with that, the main painting is finished. Now, I haven't based mine because I'm going to base all my Blackstone Fortress stuff together. I'm not entirely sure sort of what I want to do for the basing. All in all, they're really fun and really quick models to paint. It only took me around about 4.5 hours to complete them all. Obviously, if you're basing them, it'll take a tiny little bit longer. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this guide useful. If you followed it, if you did, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and join me on my channel for next time. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.